Some days ago, when this coup happened in Niger, the ECOWAS gathered and they gave the juntas 7 days ultimatum to hand over power back to the democratically elected president. That if not, that they are going to take military action and strike Niger. And yesterday, there was a top secret and the memo that the president of Nigeria, Vladimìr Tinubu, and other ECOWAS heads of states have written to their military to start mobilizing to Sokoto, northern Nigeria, the border close to Niger, where they will attack Niger Republic. This is what we have been clamoring, that there shouldn't be war, there shouldn't be any military attack. Now, before we go on this video, there are some facts I want to explain to you. And please kindly watch this video to the end because it exposes so many things. Now, let me start from saying that the Putin boy, the president of Mali, have issued a stern warning to the heads of ECOWAS and Vladimìr Tinubu. When you check the military capacity of Mali, Guinea, Burkina Faso, and Niger, these 4 countries is ruled by the military. Coup has happened in these countries. These 4 countries cannot match the power of military with Nigeria. But if you see the morale and the motivation that these people are using to threaten ECOWAS and Nigeria, you would understand that these people are not talking from their own power. Last week, the African heads of state met with Putin. They went to Russia where they had a meeting. Nigeria was represented by Kashim Shettima, the vice president currently. And after the meeting, these military heads of states had another meeting with Putin. And when they came back, this coup happened. That is why we are saying that these people, ECOWAS, shouldn't use military action against these people because these people are ready for anything. Now, before I will talk further, let me leave you to watch how the president of Mali, the Putin's boy, is very close to Putin and they have the support of Putin. How he issued warning to Nigeria and some African countries that if they attack Niger, it means that it is a declaration of war, that they will mobilize their military to fight against Nigeria and the heads of ECOWAS. After this video, I will come back to analyze what you don't want to miss. I will analyze the full details about what is going on. Stay with me. The transition government of Burkina Faso and Mali have learned through the press of the conclusion of the extraordinary summit of the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, and the West African Economic Monetary Union, WEMA, held on July 30, 2023 in Abuja, on the political situation in Niger. The transition government of Burkina Faso and Mali, 1. Expressed their fraternal solidarity and that of the peoples of Burkina Faso and Mali with the brotherly people of Niger, who have decided with full responsibility to take their destiny into their own hands and assume in front of history the full extent of their sovereignty. 2. Denounce the persistence of these regional organizations in imposing sanctions that aggravate the sufferings of the population and jeopardize the spirit of Pan-Africanism. 3. Refuse to apply these illegal, illegitimate, and inhuman sanctions against the people and authorities of Niger. 4. Warn that any military intervention against Niger would be tantamount to a declaration of war against Burkina Faso and Mali. I repeat. 4. 1. That any military intervention against Niger would be tantamount to a declaration of war against Burkina Faso and Mali. I repeat one last time. 4. 1. That any military intervention against Niger would be tantamount to the declaration of war against Burkina Faso and Mali. 5. For 1, that any military intervention against Niger would result in Burkina Faso and Mali's withdrawing from ECOWAS and apply self-defense measures in support of the armed forces of people of Niger. 6. Caution against the disastrous consequences of a military intervention in Niger, which could destabilize the entire region, as did NATO unilateral intervention in Libya, which led to the spread of terrorism in Sahel and West Africa. The transition government of Burkina Faso and Mali are profoundly outraged and surprised by the imbalance observed between, on the one hand, the swiftness and adventure attitude of certain West African political leaders, eager to use armed force to re-establish constitutional order in a sovereign state, and on the other hand, inaction, indifferent, and passive complicity of its organizations and political leaders in helping states and peoples that have been victims of terrorism for a decade and abandoned to their fate. In any case, the transition government of Burkina Faso and Mali invite their forces to be ready to mobilize, to lend and hand to the people of Niger in this dark hour of Pan-Africanism. May God bless Africa and protect the... Now, here we go. Let me take you back to the history. Last 2 years, the former president of Nigeria, Muhammadu Buhari, he was former military head of state. So he has, experience in war and all these crises. He told the United Nations that the proliferations of arms that spread in Sahel and some parts of West Africa from Libya is the reason why we are having insecurity that Nigeria has not been able to overcome. Now, what caused the proliferation of arms from Libya is because NATO invaded Libya and they caused crisis. Up till now, Libya is not stable. That is why we are calling for diplomacy. We are calling for peace. We want history to vindicate us. That we have told Africans, we have told heads of states that military action is not a way to go. It's not a way to go at all. Now, I personally, I have been to Niger, I have been to Algeria, I have been to Libya. In Niger, I know Niamey. If you have been to Niger, you will know that Niamey is far in the other side close to Mali. And Agadez is the other way around on your way to Libya. So, I know a little bit about Niger Republic. And I have been to Algeria. I have not been to Tunis. But Algeria and Tunis are far better than Niger and Libya. Now, I have been to Libya as well. These people don't have anything to lose. These people don't have anything to lose at all. If you have been to Libya, you will see that everybody, including 8 years, 7 years old, all of them have sophisticated weapons, AK-47. If you see small children carrying AK-47, so they don't have, these people don't have anything to lose. When you get to Libya, a 7 years, 8 years, 10 years, 14 years old boy can disarm anybody that he wants to disarm. These people don't have anything to lose. So if the ECOWAS or the Nigerian government want to start fighting these countries, when you are growing up, some countries, children are growing up, they will be learning ABCD. But these countries, if they are growing up, they know how to shoot gun. So all these people, they are not scared of war because they are already in war. Then we that have something to lose should use our tongue to count our teeth. Because as it has happened now, the Western countries, the Europeans and America, they are pushing Nigeria. Go and strike. Go and restore this democracy in Nigeria because of what they are benefiting. Now, if Nigeria go ahead to do this, Nigeria will not be able to survive it. The reason is because the power backing these people is greater than the whole power backing Nigeria. Let me tell you something. In Europe, Russia invaded Ukraine. There are crises in Ukraine. Why is it that America, the whole Europe, United Kingdom, why is it that they have not invaded Russia? Why is it that they have not done anything to Russia? Now military coup happen, everybody are pushing Nigeria, they say they want to strike Niger. Leave these people and let us talk. Let us go into diplomacy. So let me leave you to watch this analysis of Arise News and come back and deliberate the rest of things.
Okay, so a couple of things. Number one, ECOWAS' response was very solid, and I'll just read out through some of them before I go through my analysis. Number one, closure of borders and land and air borders between ECOWAS and Niger. That's a little bit iffy for me because how we're going to be able to execute the no-fly zone will take a lot of manpower out of us. And when ECOWAS is speaking, predominantly, almost all of this thing will be achieved by Nigeria because Nigeria predominantly, holds the capital part of ECOWAS. Suspension of commercial and financial transactions, freezing of service transactions, including energy transaction, freeze assets of Niger Republic, freeze Niger and the enterprise process, suspension of Niger, impose travel bans on military family, blah, 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 and all of that. All of this, yes, they're good, but there was also another caveat that was left aside, which is the possibility of intense action, which I sort of like think might be a case scenario for boots on the ground, which I'm more scared about. I'm scared about that because, as we currently speak, the Nigerian military is stressed. And you do not want to escalate the situation in Niger because, number one, we fail to realize that we'll have a big humanitarian crisis on our hands in the first place because our borders are very porous and most of the Nigerians, in case that happens, will definitely filter into our borders. And a lot of things either comes into our borders through Niger, small arms and the likes and proliferation of all sorts of vices. So we should also be careful about the knock-on humanitarian effect that will come to our borders. So all of this has been said, but the case is quite different. And as regards the protest, I'll give you a historical background of why that is happening. France made its first incursion in 2012-2013 when Mali was fighting insurgents in the north. It was under Tumani Touré then. And France was able to help them clear those insurgents in something called Operation Seville. Afterwards, she set up Operation Bakan to be able to consolidate on what they had started. But there's been a lot of squabble between the G5, Sahel, that's the countries that partner with France on the Operation Bakan, and there's been a lot of allegations against France as regards that. France, when it left the original base of Operation Bakan in N'Djamena in Chad, wanted to take it to Niger, but Niger kicked against it. So there's been that struggle. And France automatically ended Operation Bakan recently. And because of that, most African countries have started to tilt towards Russia. Niger has uranium. America has got a base in Niger. There are drone bases in Niger. So that's why America is shouting, because they've got assets in that country. Also, because of that, you are having a new case scenario where most of these African countries that are being toppled, that are having coups like Mali, like Guinea, with Assimi Goïta and Tambabaye, they are increasingly looking forward to Russia to be able to defend them. Russia and the Wagner Group is reigning supreme across CAR, which was caused predominantly by the fight between Tudera and Francois Bouzize, and the Seleka and Antibalaka. And then when you cascade it down, you're having Tambabaye in Guinea, which is also doing a lot of stuff with Wagner. Wagner also spans up to Sudan. So there are many interests. There's the interest of the Wagner Group in there, vis-a-vis the Americans, vis-a-vis ECOWAS and all of this, and the fact that there's already a disruption in Operation Bakan. Where's the ray of hope? I think one of the things I'll suggest is by now we should make conversations or make entries. By now, our intelligence authorities, and where's the role of the NIA? The NIA should be able to have contact even with the top military brass and these guys that conducted this in Niger. Can we open conversations with them? Because this is not the first time that a scenario like this will happen in Niger. In 2010, it did happen. When President Mamadou Tandja wanted to extend his tenure, Jibo, the head of the military there, stepped in. And when he stepped in, what did he do? He was able to, he planted a coup, pushed Mamadou Tandja out, but he returned power. And that's where Issoufou got elected as president. So can we talk to them about a peaceful transition? I still feel we can use our intelligence guys to be able to crack the military brass and talk to them. And if that's not the case, if we can't have that, probably these sanctions too can work. But I don't want a case scenario where we are having boots on the ground. What I was saying as regards Russia was the fact that in some African countries, Sudan, Guinea, they are already putting their foothold there.
All right. Thanks.
Okay, it's as follows. ECOWAS intervention is not unexpected. And, this is consistent with a declaration in Guinea-Bissau by President Tinubu when he emerged as ECOWAS chair, that, look, democracy is the way forward. Military interventions will not be allowed across the West African region. Then, of course, when he went to Nairobi, he said the same thing. And then this situation in Niger emerged. Before now, what are the steps that ECOWAS had taken. President Tinubu met with President Patrice Talon of the Republic of Benin, and a delegation was sent, led by President Patrice Talon, to talk to the coup leaders. Also, Nigeria sent a delegation of 3, former Katsina State governor, head of Nigeria's NIA, and the chief of air staff to talk to the coup leaders. But of course, no headway was made. Despite the sanctions that were announced yesterday, President Mahamat Debi was also, sent to go and talk to the coup leaders. And he was shown on Niger State TV holding meetings with General Tiani and his crew of coup plotters. Now, look at the sanctions that have been imposed. Well, we may say that in this particular case, ECOWAS has acted quickly and has taken certain steps. Well, not waiting for the international community to take the lead in the matter. And they've listed these sanctions: stoppage of aid, military officials to be targeted, their assets to be frozen, financial transactions to be halted, no-fly zone, borders to be closed against Niger. So you're isolating Niger. But the big question here is, can sanctions work? Do sanctions work? In the last 3 years, this is the 7th coup we will have in the Sahel region. In Niger, the 5th since independence. In each case, the most recent ones in Mali, in Guinea-Conakry, and also in Burkina Faso, ECOWAS took the same steps of listing more or less the same sanctions. But those sanctions have not worked. They have not worked. At the end of the day, you probably end up punishing the ordinary people. The people who are going to hold the short end of the stick are the people of Niger themselves. And that's why I agree with Adesua Omorua when summarizing her report. She pointed out that, look, the future of Niger hangs in the balance. Indeed, it hangs in the balance. And the people will be the ones to suffer for it. Niger depends on international aid and assistance. The European Union has suspended aid to Niger now. They have a package of 503 million euros that they're supposed to give Niger. They've stopped that. France has stopped aid to Niger. The United States is likely to follow suit. Anthony Blinken, having spoken yesterday in support of the decision of ECOWAS. Now, this is a country that is one of the poorest in the world, despite the fact that it has the 7th largest deposit of uranium. But it gets about 2 billion in terms of international aid per annum. Now, all of that is going to stop. So the economy will crumble. Now, take the example of this talk that, okay, they will go and negotiate with them, a timetable for transition to civilian rule will work out. It has not worked in Mali. It has not worked in other places. The coup plotters will just sit down there. And look at the irony. The same man that came to power through coup in Chad, Debi, is the one that is going to Niger to go and negotiate discussions. So, I'm not very optimistic about those sanctions, but in terms of optics, in terms of appearing to be doing something, it looks good. Now, what is the threat to Nigeria, and why should Nigeria be interested in what is going on in Niger? Niger is our neighboring country. What is happening in that country can spread. The complaint is about bad governance. It's about crisis in the country. Well, we hope it does not spread. Because if it does not spread, all of us are safe. The real fear is what is called the Libya effect. You will recall that when President Buhari was talking about Libya, he was talking about the proliferation of small arms and weapons and the threat to Nigeria in the northeastern corridor of the country. That's one thing to worry about. Now, the EU has condemned the coup. The United States has done so. Everybody has condemned it. However, it is instructive that Prigozhin, the head of the Wagner Group, is the only person that I have seen in the various reports saying that what has happened in Niger is good news and that he's offering his security team to come and help ensure order in that country. Well, we saw the Wagner Group in Mali. They merely complicated the problem. In Sudan, they caused more problem. In Central African Republic, they caused more problem. So the threat, therefore, is that of private military contractors with Russia in the background, trying to expand influence across the West African region. So the big issue is stability within the region, and Nigeria, as the leader in the sub-region, has taken, the leadership that is required in this particular instance. But we keep watching. The leaders in the coup plotters in Niger, they are bluffing. Do they have capacity? But the only problem is that even if ECOWAS wants to intervene, it's Nigeria that will bear the brunt. Look at all the countries that attended the meeting yesterday. Gambia, Togo, Republic of Benin. If it comes to putting boots on the ground and money on the ground, it will be Nigeria that will bear it. Can we afford that?
Absolutely. Now, talking about the big issue being a potential collaboration or support of Niger Republic from Russia, and that's obviously through private military, the Wagner Group. But let me dial back and say, first of all, following from that summit, ECOWAS meeting yesterday held in Abuja, it's important to say that the message sent out by ECOWAS and the conversations and discussions at the hard stance must be praised. As a group, as a bloc, we must praise them for coming out very strongly. But before then, if I come from a geopolitical perspective in terms of the coup and Western interest, I mean, we've talked about already the different groups, countries that have spoken out against the coup in Niger. But what is this interest of the Western world in West Africa? Is it a coincidence that in only 1 year we have seen a spate of coups in this region? And if you look at the Sahel region, you see that almost all the blocs have been taken over by military rule through a coup. Now, when you look at the old hegemonists and the new hegemonists, the old being the United States and their allies, and the emerging ones like Russia and China, it might give you a little understanding of this interest. And then when you put that side by side, by Mali and Burkina Faso running, as it were, to Russia for support and help, and the presence of the Wagner force in these countries, then might give you a little understanding as to why and how this is happening. But beyond that going on, and that then brings us to the question around what then happens if at the end of 1 week, following the expiry of the deadline given by ECOWAS to Niger Republic to either return power to President Bouzman or face military presence, what could that mean? Already it's been established that the Niger military force cannot in any way withstand the ECOWAS military if indeed they decide to use force. And so what would they do? They perhaps would approach an ally in terms of Russia to support them. Again, inviting Russia to yet another African country to support. This is a dangerous, slippery slope, especially for the independence and sovereignty of nations in Africa and neighboring countries. And don't forget that Nigeria shares a border with Niger. Beyond that, something that's very important to talk about, perhaps should go on the conversation table at ECOWAS, because when it comes to things like this, they've taken a hard stance, and President Tinubu as chair is really speaking tough and talking tough. We're not going to accept any kind of coup on the West African side. But the nations, the member nations themselves who are having these conversations, they say that if we don't want foreign interference, we must strengthen our internal democracy. And that's why the conversation as to whether democracy works in Africa or not has come up following these spate of coups. If you look at the countries in conversation, Togo's president is in his third term. He's going to spend 25 years if he goes on for another term. These are the presidents having this conversation. If you go on to Côte d'Ivoire, the 81-year-old president is in his third term as well. We look at these conversations, and if we talk about strengthening democracies in Africa, we must look within. If we don't look within, then we open up a pathway for foreign interference, especially countries like Russia, who are looking for an inroad into Africa through any means. We saw the video of the protesters, whether they be legitimate or paid or sponsored protesters. The concerns and the agitations of the people are real. And so there is a basis for saying, oh, this is the reason why we have to come in to intervene. Democracy is not working in this part. And this is why ECOWAS must also take a firm stance on strengthening democracies within the country member nations. Too many of the countries present in ECOWAS have been overrun by democracies that have been abused, especially by leaders who want, by elongated term coups, to remain in office and not want to shift. So these are conversations that we must have whilst we're dealing with the Niger Republic situation, so that we don't have an extension of agitations and coups in other countries in this particular region.
Yes, of course. This is nothing but the truth. The causes of these coups upon coups going on in Africa continent is because of bad political leaders. How do you want military or civilians to feel? You couldn't combat terrorism, you couldn't lead well. After your tenure, you want to elongate your tenure, you want to change the constitution, and you begin to act as if you are a god. You begin to do all sorts of things. So what the Arise News just analyze is nothing but the truth. So taking military action against these people is like you doing nothing, because the military action will not solve the problem. The problem is you political leaders in West Africa, you heads of states in Africa, are you not ashamed of yourself? Right from time, you could see some president being in the seat for 23 years, for 20 years, in this modern age, when you could not even deliver any dividends of democracy to the people. Niger Republic is one of the poorest nations on earth. But I want to ask questions. Why are they poor when they have so many things that could make them to be rich in 1 year? They have uranium, they have so many mineral resources. Now, France has nuclear bomb, right? The uranium they are taking from Niger is the reason why France has nuclear bomb. People should think, people should reason. So we shouldn't just go and start invading the country. Let us negotiate with these people. These people, they are not guilty. And I am saying this for the last time. If democracy is the government of the people, by the people, and for the people, any kind of government the majority of people choose, either military rule or whatever, let it be regarded that it is the wish of the people. Because I've come to realize that in Africa, this is the bitter truth. The wish of the majority cannot supersede the power of political elite. That is the death of democracy in Africa. That is the death of democracy. The wish of the people cannot supersede the political influence and power of just group of political elite. So a group of political elite will just come out and tell the whole masses, because they have military by their back, they can control everybody and do what you want. That is not democracy. When you go to the streets of Niger now, people are happy. And when you read comments of so many videos, people are saying, when is this going to happen in Nigeria? When is this going to happen in other countries? Because the democracy we are practicing is like a dead democracy. That is not the democracy they practice in other countries, where you don't value human beings, you don't count the votes of people, and you call it democracy. We are playing. This play is too much. See you on my next video.